My name is Edward, and I'm 65 years old. I never imagined I'd be raising a child again at this age, especially not under these circumstances. My hands shake a little more now, and my knees groan when I stand too quickly, but none of that compares to the ache in my heart, not from age but from betrayal. It all started 6 months ago. My daughter Claire and her husband Daniel dropped off little Lucy at my house. She was bundled up in her pink jacket, her tiny wheelchair freshly polished, and a sleepy smile still on her face. Claire said it would just be for the weekend. She said they needed a break, that parenting a special needs child was exhausting and they hadn't had a vacation since Lucy was born. I didn't hesitate. Of course, I agreed. Lucy is my granddaughter, my only grandchild. She was born with cerebral palsy. She can't walk, and her speech is delayed, but her mind, sharp as a tack. Her giggle is like music, and when she looks at you with those big green eyes, it's like she's searching your soul. 2 days passed, then a week, then 2. I called Claire. No answer. Sent texts. Nothing. I checked their house. Empty. Mail piling up. Blinds drawn. No sign of them. Worried, I reached out to one of Claire's old friends from college, just on a hunch. She said, "Didn't they go on a cruise?" I saw pictures on Facebook. My heart dropped. I searched Claire's profile. There they were, smiling, under palm trees, champagne in hand, ocean in the background. No mention of Lucy, no sign they even remembered they had a child. I stared at the screen for a long time. There was no mistake. They left. They chose sunshine and cocktails over their daughter. I didn't know whether to cry or scream, so I did neither. I turned off the phone and went to check on Lucy. She was napping, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. I sat beside her and made a promise. I won't leave you. Not ever. It hasn't been easy. My pension is modest. My wife, God rest her soul, passed away 10 years ago. It's just me now, and Lucy. She needs constant care, therapy sessions, doctor appointments, special equipment. Most of it isn't covered there. Where nights I sat at the kitchen table with bills spread out like a storm in front of me. I'd run the numbers again and again. There was no way to stretch it. Something had to give, so I made a decision. I sold the house Claire grew up in, the one my wife and I saved for, renovated, lived in for over 30 years. It broke me. But Lucy needed more than a roof over her head. She needed a future. With the money, I rented a smaller place, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. It's nothing fancy, but it's close to the children's hospital and has a little park nearby. I bought Lucy a new wheelchair, lightweight, easier for her to maneuver. I enrolled her in a special needs school where teachers treat her like the bright, capable girl she is. Her laughter has returned. She's learning new words. She's drawing pictures, mostly of rabbits and suns and 2 people holding hands. She says the taller one is me. I cried the first time she told me that. The neighbors are kind. Mrs. Reynolds from next door bakes cookies for Lucy every Friday. Tom, the retired vet down the street, helped me build a small ramp for the front steps. Somehow, even through all this heartbreak, we've found moments of peace. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't still angry, not just at Claire, but at myself. I keep asking, where did I go wrong? I raised her to be kind, to be strong. I worked long hours so she could go to college. I thought I taught her what it meant to love and to sacrifice. But maybe I failed. Maybe I gave her too much, too easily. Maybe Daniel filled her head with dreams of freedom, of living for themselves. Or maybe she was always like this, and I just refused to see it. I've kept all of Lucy's documents now. Her birth certificate, her medical records, her insurance papers, all tucked safely in a folder labeled Lucy's life, because it is her life, and I'm doing everything I can to give it back to her. One evening, Lucy asked me a question that knocked the wind out of me. "Grandpa, when's Mommy coming back?" I paused. How do you answer that? I took her hand and kissed it. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." She looked at me long and hard, and nodded like she understood more than any 5-year-old should. "We haven't heard from Claire or Daniel. Not a letter, not a call, not even a birthday card. It's like Lucy never existed to them. Some days I wonder if they'll ever come back, if they'll knock on the door full of apologies and tears. And if they do, what then? Do I slam the door? Do I let Lucy see them? Do I scream at them for what they did? Or do I hold back for Lucy's sake? These questions haunt me in the quiet hours. I'm not sure I have the answers, but I do know this. I may be old, I may be tired, but I have never felt more alive than I do when Lucy smiles at me. She is my reason now, and every morning I wake up, make her breakfast, pack her school bag, and wheel her to the front gate. I feel like maybe, just maybe, we're going to be okay. Even if the people who should have loved her the most turned their backs, I'll keep standing tall for her, because love isn't about biology, it's about presence, and I'm here for now, and for as long as she needs me. The rain had been falling gently all night, not a storm, just a soft, steady patter against the windows that reminded me of the nights I used to sit by the fireplace with my wife, reading or listening to her hum old folk songs. Lucy had fallen asleep early. She curled up in her bed with her rabbit and her favorite book, the one with the worn-out corners and faded illustrations of a fox and a little girl. I watched her for a while from the doorway, Her face was peaceful. There were no signs of confusion or sadness, just calm. I turned off the light and closed her door halfway, just like she liked it, half open so she didn't feel alone, half closed so the shadows didn't scare her. I made myself a cup of tea and sat down at the kitchen table. The bills were there again. I had pushed them to the side earlier, not wanting to ruin the evening, but they waited, patient and unrelenting. One envelope had the bright red letters, "Final Notice." It wasn't the first. I had been dipping into the last of my savings since selling the house. Rent, therapy, transportation, school supplies. It added up faster than I ever expected. My pride told me not to ask for help, but Lucy's future whispered. Something else. I thought about going back to work. I used to manage a hardware store before retiring. Maybe they'd take me back part-time, or maybe I could work evenings at the library down the road, shelving books. I wasn't looking for much, just enough to cover the essentials. The next morning, I called the hardware store. The new manager, a young man named Derek, answered. He said he remembered me. Said I'd trained his cousin when he worked there during high school. He offered me a weekend shift, 2 days a week. Nothing glamorous, but steady. I accepted on the spot. Lucy would be with Mrs. Reynolds those afternoons. She had offered to help whenever I needed someone to watch her. I was hesitant at first. I didn't want to burden anyone, but Mrs. Reynolds insisted. She'd lost her husband 5 years ago. Said the house felt too quiet without someone around. She and Lucy had already formed a sweet bond. It felt right. My first day back at work was harder than I expected. The aisles looked familiar, but my body moved slower. The lifting, the constant walking, it took a toll still. It felt good to be useful again. One customer, a young father with a toddler in his cart, asked for help finding childproofing supplies. We ended up talking for 10 minutes. He mentioned his daughter had autism. I told him about Lucy. We shared stories, fears, small victories. I didn't say anything, but when he walked away, I felt lighter, like maybe I wasn't so alone in all this. The days began to fall into a rhythm. Morning routine, with Lucy, lunch and playtime, therapy sessions. Then my weekend shifts and quiet evenings. She started calling me Dad sometimes. I'd correct her gently, reminding her I was Grandpa. But one day she looked at me with those wise little eyes and said, "You do all the dad things." And I had no reply. I just held her and nodded. A few weeks later I received a letter. No return address, just my name, handwritten. Inside was a folded sheet of paper. It was from Claire. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. The writing was rushed, messy. Unlike her, she said they were sorry, said the cruise was supposed to be a short escape, a breather, that they got caught up in something they didn't plan. She mentioned they were trying to figure things out. No phone number, no address, just a vague apology and a single question. Is Lucy okay? I stared at the words for a long time. Was that guilt I felt? Anger, grief? I didn't know. I didn't respond, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know what to say. What do you say to a parent who walked away? I placed the letter in the drawer with Lucy's papers. I'd tell her someday, but not now. Not when she was just starting to smile without effort again. Spring came quickly. Lucy loved watching the flowers bloom from the window. We planted sunflowers in a pot on the porch. She named them. Each one got a different name: Bobby, Lisa, Henry, Sunshine. Every morning she'd ask if they had grown taller. Some days I'd catch her talking to them. She'd tell them about her day, about the kids at school, about Mrs. Reynolds' cat, and sometimes about her mummy. She went on a big boat, she said one day. But she forgot me. It felt like a knife twisting in my chest, but I didn't let her see. Instead, I sat beside her and asked what she told the sunflowers. I told them, "You're the best." She said the days kept rolling forward. Lucy's vocabulary grew. She could now read simple sentences. Her therapists were amazed at her progress. She started painting. Her favorite picture was one of our house, small and cozy, with a big yellow sun and 2 stick figures. We hung it on the fridge, but just as things began to feel stable, life reminded me nothing stays still. It was a Friday. I had just picked Lucy up from school. We were walking home when a sleek black car slowed beside us. The window rolled down. It was Daniel. He looked thinner. His eyes were bloodshot. "Edward," he said, "can we talk?" I froze. Lucy clutched my hand tighter. Daniel glanced at her, then back at me. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something more, but nothing came. "I don't think this is the place," I said, my voice steady but cold. He nodded slowly. We didn't mean to disappear. Claire is, I cut him off. "You left her for months. You don't get to explain this in a driveway." He looked down, shame washing over his face. "Can we meet? Just you and me?" I didn't answer. I picked Lucy up and wheeled her into the yard. When I looked back, the car was gone. That night, I sat awake for hours. Daniel's face haunted me. Why now? Did they want Lucy back? Did they want forgiveness? Could they be trusted? I didn't know, but I had to find out. For Lucy, because sooner or later, the past always comes knocking, and I needed to decide what kind of future she deserved. I reached into the drawer, pulled out Claire's letter, and read it again under the dim kitchen light. Something about it felt unfinished. There were too many gaps, too much left unsaid. And now, with Daniel showing up, I feared the silence wouldn't last much longer. I watched the clock tick past midnight tomorrow. I'd go see Daniel, but not as a father-and-law, not as a man looking for answers. I'd go as Lucy's guardian. As the only one who hadn't abandoned her, as the man who sold everything for a promise, and that promise was far from over. Saturday morning arrived with a quiet tension hanging in the air. Lucy was still asleep when I got up. I made her breakfast: early oatmeal with banana slices. Her favorite hand left a note on the fridge for Mrs. Reynolds. She'd agreed to watch Lucy while I went to meet Daniel. The walk to the diner felt longer than it should have, maybe because my thoughts weighed heavier with each step. I hadn't told Lucy where I was going. How could I? How do you explain to a little girl that the man who left her behind suddenly wants to talk? The diner was nearly empty, just the smell of burnt coffee and the faint clatter of dishes in the back. Daniel was already there, seated in a booth by the window. He looked older than I remembered, the lines on his face deeper, a slight tremble in his hands. He stood when he saw me. "Edward," he said quietly. I gave a small nod and slid into the seat across from him for a moment. Neither of us spoke. He reached for his coffee, then changed his mind. "I know I don't deserve this meeting," he started, "but thank you." I didn't answer. He ran a hand through his hair. "Claire's not doing well," he finally said. "She's been in and out of clinics since the cruise." I blinked. "Clinics?" He nodded. "She had a breakdown. Something snapped. She couldn't handle the pressure, said she needed to feel free again. The cruise was just the start of her trying to run from everything, but she never came back from it." He paused. "She didn't even want to write you that letter. I had to convince her. I told her Lucy deserved more than silence." My hands tightened around my cup. "She deserved parents," I said. "She still does." Daniel looked away. "I know," he whispered. "I failed her. I failed all of you." He pulled something from his pocket and slid it across the table. A photo. Claire, looking fragile, sitting on a hospital bench, her eyes hollow, shoulders hunched like the weight of the world had broken her. "She's not the same person," Daniel said. "She cries every night. She asks for Lucy, but she's scared. She thinks Lucy won't forgive her. She might not," I replied. We sat in silence again. "I want to help," he said after a while. "I know I've lost the right to be her father, but I want to do something. Anything." "What do you want?" I asked. He looked me in the eye. "I want to see her. From a distance. Even I want to be involved in whatever way you'll allow." I leaned back. "How do I know this isn't just guilt talking?" He shook his head. "I've had 6 months to think about everything. I've seen what silence does. It eats you alive. I just want to try to fix what I broke. I didn't make any promises." I told him I'd think about it. We parted quietly. No handshakes. No goodbyes. Just a lingering look that said more than either of us could put into words. When I returned home, Lucy was in the backyard with Mrs. Reynolds. She was playing with chalk, drawing suns and stars on the pavement. I stood at the edge of the yard for a moment, watching her, so full of life, so unaware of how close her world had come to collapsing that evening. After dinner, Lucy sat on my lap, flipping through one of her picture books. She pointed to an illustration of a ship. "That's the kind Mommy went on," she said. I nodded. "She's still on the ship?" "No, sweetie," I said gently. "She's back now, but she's not feeling very well." Lucy looked up at me. "Can I send her a picture?" I paused. Of course. She got to work the next day. She drew a big red heart, a smiling sun, and 2 stick figures holding hands. She wrote "Love, Lucy" in shaky letters at the bottom. I mailed it to the address Daniel had written down on the back of the photo. Weeks passed. Then, one afternoon, a package arrived. Inside was a hand-knitted scarf, pale pink, small enough for Lucy. There was a note: "Tell her I'm trying." It read. Claire's handwriting was shaky but familiar. Lucy wore the scarf proudly. "My mummy made this. She told anyone who asked." I didn't correct her one evening. Daniel called. He asked if he could attend Lucy's school recital. She was going to be part of a little group performance singing a nursery rhyme with her classmates. I said yes. On one condition: no contact, no confusion. "Just watch and leave," he agreed. The night of the recital, the small auditorium was packed, parents with flowers, teachers guiding nervous kids to their spots. Lucy wheeled herself on stage with the help of her assistant. She had a paper crown on her head and a huge grin on her face. When her group began singing, my heart swelled. She waved to me mid-song. I smiled and waved back from the corner of my eye. I saw Daniel. He was standing in the back, hands clasped in front of him, eyes locked on his daughter. Tears streamed down his cheeks after the show. He slipped out quietly. No drama, no disruption, just a glimpse of a man trying to atone. That night, I wrote him a letter. I told him I appreciated his respect. I told him Lucy was doing well, and I told him that trust would take time, but maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward. Life continued in its gentle rhythm. Lucy thrived. She learned to tie her shoes using a special tool. She could count to 100 now. She loved playing pretend with her dolls, making up stories where everyone was safe and loved. But every now and then, she'd ask when Mummy would visit, and every time I'd say the same thing: maybe one day when she's ready, because I still wasn't sure what that day would look like. Daniel started visiting more often, once a month. He'd come by while Lucy was at school. We'd sit on the porch and talk. He'd bring diapers or books or art supplies, always asking first. He never pushed, never overstepped. One day, he brought a photo album. He handed it to me without a word. Inside were pictures of Lucy as a baby, Claire holding her, Daniel rocking her to sleep, a birthday party I never got to attend. I felt a lump rise in my throat. I want her to have these, he said. Someday, I nodded. It was a small gesture, but it meant something. Claire hadn't written again. No calls, no packages, just that scarf. Part of me wanted to hate her for it, but another part, the part that watched Lucy wear that scarf with pride, wanted to believe she was healing in her own way, that she was trying, even if it was from afar. And maybe that had to be enough for now. The world didn't change overnight, but there was peace in the small things, and Lucy's laughter. In Daniel's quiet effort, in the way the sun hit our porch just right in the mornings. I still had questions, still had fears, but I also had hope, and for the first time in a long while, I wasn't carrying it alone. Spring eventually gave way to early summer. The air was warmer now, filled with the smell of cut grass and the distant hum of lawnmowers. Lucy spent more time outside, drawing chalk rainbows on the pavement, watering her potted sunflowers, and chasing bubbles Mrs. Reynolds blew for her. She was thriving in ways I hadn't expected, more confident, more talkative. There was a glow about her, lightness that hadn't been there when she first arrived. Some mornings she even helped me pack her school bag. I'd catch her mimicking my routine, brushing her teeth, choosing her socks carefully, and insisting on buttering her own toast. She was growing up. It hit me sometimes when I wasn't expecting it, the way her speech had improved, the way she asked questions about the world like she couldn't wait to be part of it. One afternoon, she asked about my job. "You still work at the screw place?" she said, her nose scrunching with curiosity. I laughed. "The hardware store. Yes, just a few days a week." She nodded, satisfied. "Do you like it?" "I like coming home to you," I said. She grinned, then turned back to her drawing, carefully coloring in a big purple heart. Life had a new rhythm, not perfect, but steady. And then, in early June, I received another letter. This one wasn't from Daniel. It was from Claire. The envelope was soft, almost like parchment. My name was written in her delicate script, the way she used to sign birthday cards. I opened it slowly, sitting at the kitchen table while Lucy napped. The letter was short. "Dad, I think I'm ready. Not for everything, not all at once, but I'd like to try if you're willing. I'd like to see her. Love, Claire." I read it twice. 3 times. My heart beat heavy in my chest. I didn't know what ready meant, or how much of it she truly meant, but something in her words felt different, sincere, timid, like someone peeking out from behind a door they were too afraid to knock on. I sat with the letter for 2 days before I said anything. Then, during Lucy's bath time, as I was drying her off with the fluffy blue towel she loved, she asked again, "When's Mummy coming?" Her voice was soft, not sad, just curious, and I realized I had been waiting for her to ask it that way, not out of longing or pain, but out of wonder. So I said, "Maybe soon." Lucy blinked, then smiled. "Can I make her a new picture?" "Of course," I said. The next morning, Lucy got to work. She drew a garden full of sunflowers, a little girl in a wheelchair, and 2 grown-ups standing beside her. She handed it to me. "Send this to Mommy, okay? So she knows I'm not mad." Those words lingered. She wasn't mad. Not like I'd been. She just wanted to love and be loved. I mailed the picture that afternoon. 3 days later, Claire called. I recognized the number from Daniel's scribbled notes, but seeing it on my phone still made my chest tighten. I answered with a shaky breath. "Dad." Her voice was quieter than I remembered, like she hadn't spoken much in months. "I got the picture," she said. "It's beautiful. She worked hard on it." I replied. There was silence for a moment. "Can I come see her?" "Just for a little. While I don't want to confuse her, I need to see her." I didn't answer right away. I looked at the calendar pinned to the fridge. "Saturday we'll be at the park near the school." "Come then. Just you." "Okay, thank you." She hung up first. I stared at the phone long after the call ended. Saturday came quickly. The sky was a gentle blue, dotted with slow-moving clouds. Lucy wore her yellow sundress with the white bows. She insisted on bringing 2 juice boxes, one for her, one for anyone who might be thirsty. We sat on a bench near the duck pond. Lucy tossed pieces of bread to the waddling birds, giggling every time one of them quacked loudly. Then I saw her. Claire. Walking slowly along the path. She wore a simple dress, no makeup, her hair pulled back loosely. She looked different. Older, thinner. But her eyes were still Claire's. Lucy looked up just as she approached. She stared for a second, her head tilted slightly. Then she said, "Mommy." Claire's lips trembled. "Hi, baby." Lucy didn't move at first. Then, without a word, she held out the second juice box. Claire took it with shaking hands and sat down on the bench. Neither of them said anything more. They just sipped juice quietly, side by side, watching the ducks. I sat a few feet away, pretending not to watch, but memorizing every second. After a while, Lucy asked, "Do you like sunflowers?" Claire smiled gently. "I love them," I planted one named Sunshine. I'll show you. Someday. I'd like that. We stayed at the park for almost an hour. No deep conversations, no apologies, just quiet presence. Claire kissed Lucy's forehead before leaving. She looked at me and whispered, "Thank you." I nodded, unsure what else to say. The next few weeks were cautious. Claire visited every Saturday, sometimes for an hour, sometimes just for a walk. She brought small gifts, a book, a scarf, a tiny sunflower pin. She never stayed too long, never pushed. Lucy asked questions. Some Claire answered, others she didn't, but Lucy never demanded more than what was offered. She just took the love she was given. Daniel called one evening. He said Claire was sleeping better, eating more, that her doctor said the visits were helping. He asked if one day he could come too. I told him we'd see. Lucy was happier, but I was cautious. She'd been hurt once. I wouldn't let it happen again, but there was something honest in Daniel's voice, something I hadn't heard before. Time passed, and with it came small moments. I never thought we'd get Lucy holding Claire's hand as they fed ducks. Claire brushing Lucy's hair and laughing at her jokes. One afternoon, Lucy said, "I think Mommy is learning how to be Mommy again." I looked at her and felt tears sting my eyes. "I think you're right." And in that moment, I realized something. Healing wasn't about forgetting what had been broken. It was about building something new with the pieces, something gentler, stronger, not perfect, but real. And that kind of love lasts. Margaret's house was still and dim, lit only by the soft morning sun filtering through the curtains. I sat by the window, watching the world move without me. The steam from my tea curled in the light, and across the living room, Emily was curled up in her wheelchair, a blanket pulled to her chin. She'd been sleeping better lately. Her breathing no longer shallow, her dreams no longer broken by sudden cries or whispered apologies in her sleep. But today, she was unusually quiet. Not in a bad way, just ... thoughtful. She looked at me more often, as if searching for something, maybe answers, maybe the comfort of knowing I wasn't going anywhere. I leaned back in the chair, the wood creaking beneath me, and watched as a small bird landed on the porch railing. For a moment, the pain in my chest, where all my resentment, loss, and confusion lived, softened in. "Grandpa," Emily said softly. I turned. Her voice always reached straight into the part of me that still believed there was good left in the world. "Yes, sweetheart. Why do people leave?" It was a simple question, and yet it carried the weight of everything we'd been through, everything she had been left to carry. I looked down at my hands, weathered and lined, remembering how I once held her tiny fingers with such care, terrified I might break her if I wasn't gentle enough. And now, here we were. I walked over and knelt beside her. "Sometimes," I said slowly, "people leave because they're scared, or selfish, or because they don't know how to love the right way." Her brow furrowed. "But you didn't leave." "No," I whispered, placing a hand over hers. "I never could." She was quiet again. Outside, the bird fluttered away. Margaret came in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. "Breakfast is ready," she said, her smile gentle. Emily nodded, but didn't move. I wheeled her to the table, and Margaret had already set up her place, cutting the pancakes into tiny bites, the way she liked them, Margaret said, pouring syrup with care. "Sometimes the people who are meant to be your family aren't the ones you were born to." Emily looked up. "You mean like you and Grandpa?" Margaret smiled. "Exactly." The three of us ate together in a silence that wasn't empty. It was full of warmth, of a kind of peace that came after storms. After breakfast, I stepped out to the porch. I had calls to make. The house we'd sold had been under my name, the cruise that had come and gone. Still, no word from my daughter, not a message, not even guilt, but I wasn't holding my breath anymore. I sat down on the bench Margaret had painted light blue just for me, and took out my old phone. The screen cracked at the corner, but it still worked. I dialed a number I'd been putting off for weeks, a local lawyer, the one Margaret's son had recommended. He answered on the third ring. "Mr. Donnelly, this is Frank, ready to move forward." I looked out at the trees, swaying gently in the morning breeze. "Yes, I want to make it official. I want full custody, and I want to change the will." "Understood. We'll start the paperwork today." When I returned inside, Emily was in the living room again, humming softly. She had her coloring book open, a page half filled with blues and greens. "You always liked the ocean, didn't you?" I asked, kneeling beside her. She nodded. "But I don't like boats anymore." I swallowed. "Me neither." I watched her color, watched the way her small hands gripped the crayon with focus and care. Later that day, Margaret and I went to the lawyer's office. Emily stayed with Margaret's neighbor, a retired nurse who had taken to Emily like she was her own grandchild. We signed the papers. I made everything official, not because I didn't love my daughter anymore, but because I loved Emily more than the idea of being a father to someone who had forgotten how to be a mother. Weeks passed. The air turned cooler. Leaves began to fall. Emily started school, a small local one with a kind-hearted teacher who went out of her way to include her in everything. And for the first time in what felt like years, I saw her smile like a child again, not just out of politeness or for my sake, but because she was genuinely happy. At night, I'd read to her. We went through old books I used to read to my daughter. There was something bittersweet about it, but I held on to the sweet more than the bitter. One night, as I turned the page, Emily placed her hand over mine. "Will you always be here?" I didn't hesitate always. She leaned into my side, and I wrapped an arm around her. We stayed like that until she drifted off. The seasons shifted again. Snow came gently at first, then heavier. The house felt warmer than ever, not just from the fire in the hearth, but from the quiet love that lived within its walls. Margaret had started teaching Emily how to bake. The kitchen often smelled of cinnamon and vanilla, and laughter was no longer a rare sound. One morning, as I shoveled the walkway, a car pulled up, a sleek black SUV. Out stepped my daughter, her face pale against the cold, lips trembling not from the wind, but from something else. Regret, maybe. Behind her, her husband stayed seated. She walked slowly toward me, hands empty, eyes filled with something I couldn't quite name. "Dad," she said, voice cracking. I didn't answer. Not yet. I just looked at her daughter, the daughter I once carried on my shoulders, who now stood in front of me as a stranger I barely recognized. "Can we talk?" I looked back at the house, at the window, where I could just make out the top of Emily's head as she read in her usual spot. I turned back. "She's doing fine," I said. My daughter's eyes filled with tears. "I made a mistake." I nodded slowly. "Yes, you did." The wind picked up, carrying with it a silence that stretched too long. She looked down at her shoes. "Can I see her?" And for the first time in a long time, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I wanted to let her in again, if I even trusted her to step over that threshold. But I knew one thing: whatever came next, it wouldn't just be my decision, it would be Emily's, too. I nodded toward the porch. "Wait here." I went inside, heart pounding. Emily looked up, noticing the shift in my expression. "What's wrong, Grandpa?" I knelt beside her, took her hand. "There's someone outside. She wants to see you." Her eyes widened, not with joy, but with something closer to fear. "Do I have to?" I squeezed her hand. "Only if you want to." She was quiet for a long moment, then she nodded. I helped her to the door, wheeled her out onto the porch, and stood beside her. My daughter stood, trembling, hands now clenched in front of her. When Emily looked at her, the silence between them was heavy. Until Emily said softly, "Hi, Mom." And the story wasn't over.